In the spring of 2019, a group of 20-somethings spent their weekends partying at a friend's home in East Detroit. One such night turned from celebration to horror in the blink of an eye. In the early morning hours, laughter and dancing were interrupted by the unthinkable. A masked man burst through the front door, wielding a gun, and opened fire. 3 friends were killed. 2 others were seriously wounded. The survivors never got a clear look at the shooter, but they had a suspicion. Someone they had met just hours earlier. Today's case is a chilling reminder of how one reckless decision can change everything. It's the story of a night of secrets, chaos, and unimaginable loss. Let's dive in. It was Friday night, May 25, 2019. A group of friends gathered at a house in East Detroit. The night had been wild, filled with drinking, dancing, arguments, hookups, and noise. As the party died down, only 5 people remained. Blair Keys, Paris Cameron, Alonte Davis, Armand Matthews, Timothy Blanchard. The house was cluttered, still under construction, and littered with the remnants of the night. The friends were winding down, joking about the evening's chaos. Then came a sudden sound, what they thought were fireworks, near the front door. But it wasn't fireworks. A man wearing a ski mask stormed inside with a gun and began shooting. It happened in seconds. Blair, who had fled to the bathroom, emerged to find his friends Paris and Alonte collapsed in the living room, gravely wounded. Distorted 911 audio. "What's the address, ma'am? What's going on? I'm a gay male. 2 of my friends are fatally wounded. Please, just get here." Meanwhile, Armand Matthews, shot in the chest, was in the basement doing everything he could to help Timothy, who was also critically injured. He, too, dialed 911. 911 audio. "Someone just came in and shot my friends. Please." Blair later recalled hearing over 20 gunshots while hiding in the bathroom. The attacker had fired without mercy. Alonte Davis had been hit twice. Timothy Blanchard and Paris Cameron were each shot 4 times. By the time emergency responders arrived, Alonte was already dead in the dining room. Despite Armand's heroic efforts, Timothy didn't survive either. Paris was rushed to the hospital and kept alive briefly as an organ donor, but later succumbed to her injuries. Paris Cameron, just 20 years old, had come out as gay at 13. A year before the shooting, she began identifying as a transgender woman. She was proud and open, just like her friends. Timothy Blanchard, known as Miami to his friends, was a kind, fun-loving 20-year-old. He was especially close with his older brother, Devil. Alonte Davis, 21, went by Tay. His sister described him as silly, full of life, and always helpful. Armand Matthews survived the gunshot to his chest, an injury he didn't even notice at first as he tried to save Timothy. Blair Keys also made it out alive. 2 other guests had been at the party earlier but left before the attack. Lance Atterbury, the 29-year-old homeowner. Brendan Suttle, Armand's new romantic interest. At the time of the shooting, Lance and Brendan were across the city at Brendan's house, speaking with his mother and packing a bag. When they returned to the house on Devonshire Road, they were met with flashing lights, police tape, and devastating news. Neither Blair nor Armand could identify the shooter. The man's face had been mostly covered by a ski mask. Blair remembered his skin tone as light, and his eyes brown. The gunman was only visible for a moment before he opened fire. Still, the survivors had a hunch. Earlier that night, the group had made a quick run to a BP gas station at Devonshire and Mac. That's where Paris met someone new. At 2:40 a.m., Paris and Alonte entered the store. Paris wore all black with a Nike cap. Alonte wore camo and a hat. Behind them in line was a young man in camouflage shorts and jacket. He had grabbed a juice and stood near the cashier. Paris spotted him and made a move. She broke away from Alonte and approached the man near the doorway. Their exchange was off-camera, but moments later, the rest of the group entered the store. As they all made purchases, Paris continued to flirt with the young man, both inside and just outside the shop. There was no audio, but cameras caught her calling after him, inviting him to the party on Devonshire Road. The man, 18-year-old Devin Robinson. He had gone to grade school with Armand and lived just 2 blocks away on Buckingham. Roughly 20 to 30 minutes after that gas station encounter, Devin showed up at the house. Devon Robinson accepted Paris Cameron's invitation to the party. But what happened after he walked through that door would change and end lives. There was heavy drinking, and the atmosphere was chaotic. Devon initially said little, but within a short time, he found himself upstairs in the master bedroom with Paris, then later with others. The sexual encounters that took place weren't a secret. In fact, they were openly joked about. The others at the party called Devon a trade, a man who presents as straight but secretly engages in relationships with other men. That Devon might be on the down low didn't seem especially dangerous in the haze of a 3 a.m. house party. But in hindsight, the warning signs were there. According to the survivors, Devon was intimately involved with multiple people during his short time in the house. Investigators took their statements and began piecing together Devon's movements, starting from the BP gas station encounter all the way to the shooting. Security footage helped create a timeline. After Paris invited him, Devon walked back toward his house on Buckingham. Along the way, he kept hesitating, stopping, turning around as if unsure whether to return. Eventually, he made his way to the house on Devonshire. He stayed for roughly an hour, most of it spent in the master bedroom. Later, BP station cameras captured his return trip. This time, Devon appeared agitated, pacing in front of the shop, spitting, and even gagging. He eventually went inside and bought another drink. The time was 4:02 a.m. By then, he was home. Less than an hour later, the massacre unfolded. After investigators identified Devon's address, they arrived at his home on Buckingham. What they found was startling. Devon and his mother, Mollery, had abruptly moved out the very next day after the murders. A roommate told police they had left in a rush. Police released Devon's photo to the media and requested the public's help in finding him. It took over a week, but eventually, an anonymous tip led detectives to a home on the opposite side of Detroit. Devon Robinson was arrested and charged with 3 counts of intentional homicide. During his interview with detectives, the officers laid everything out. "We know you were the shooter," they told him. "We know what happened earlier that night. We understand how things escalated." They told Devon they understood, that they, too, were men, that if he talked, they could advocate on his behalf to the prosecutor. They also lied. They claimed Devon's DNA was found all over the scene, which wasn't true. The only DNA linking him to anything at the crime scene came from Timothy, not Paris. Under pressure, Devon admitted to spending time with Paris in the bedroom. But he denied being involved with anyone else at the party. He also confessed something more personal. Devon told detectives he was gay, but closeted. Nobody knew. Not even his parents. "That's the thing. Don't nobody know," he said quietly. "Not even my mom, my dad." When detectives asked whether he had felt threatened, perhaps exposed, he admitted he was afraid people would find out. "I just wanted to tell them myself, before all this," he said. "Before my son told me, I knew," one detective replied. "We know our kids." Still, Devon did not admit to the killings. Investigators continued pressing him with evidence. A doorbell camera at Devon's house showed a dark figure leaving his home at 4:53 a.m. Less than 5 minutes later, a camera across from the Devonshire home captured blurry footage of someone fleeing the house, right after the shooting. Roughly 8 minutes later, at 5:01 a.m., another camera showed someone re-entering Devon's home on Buckingham. The walk between the two homes was less than a quarter mile, only 4 to 5 minutes on foot. Someone running could make the trip in 3 minutes or less. The footage from both locations lined up, down to the minute. Investigators believed it was the same person, Devon Robinson. "And when you got home, what did you do?" they asked. "Took a shower and went to sleep," he replied. "You were home that whole time, right?" "Yes." "Well, we have video of you leaving." When Devon Robinson sat across from investigators, they didn't just question him, they confronted him. "We have footage," one detective said plainly. "We see you leave your house, and come right back. So what's the truth?" Devon had claimed he was home all night. But the surveillance didn't lie. Multiple camera angles showed him leaving, walking to the house on Devonshire, and returning home shortly after the murders. "We tracked you every step. Cameras, timelines, GPS piece by piece. So either you forgot, or you lied. Which is it?" Devon stayed silent. Despite the mounting evidence, Devon Robinson pleaded not guilty to the murders of Paris Cameron, Alonte Davis, and Timothy Blanchard. He awaited trial from behind bars. His family, including his mother Mollery, stood by him. During monitored jailhouse calls, Devon frequently speculated about the case. He questioned whether the state really had the evidence they claimed. But notably, he never declared his innocence. He never repeated his alibi that he'd been home with his mother. And he never once speculated about who else could have been seen on camera leaving his house before the murders and returning afterward. His mother was especially vocal, not about the murders, but about how the media portrayed her son. "Everybody out here trying to act like you gay," Mollery fumed in one call. "That pisses me off. They trying to make it a hate crime. But that won't fly. You got a mama that's a lesbian, me. You feel me?" She seemed more upset about public speculation over Devon's sexuality than the fact he was being charged with triple homicide. There were also discussions about Devon's brothers, one of whom had taken a plea deal in an unrelated case due to a co-defendant threatening to testify against him. Devon insisted he wouldn't do the same. "They ain't got no real evidence. That hate crime, ___, should be out the window. I told the police I was gay." But while Devon admitted to being closeted, his mother encouraged him not to hide. "If you ever felt that way, don't keep it from me," she said. "You can always come to me with that, Devon Robinson's trial began in March 2020. The courtroom was tense, packed with reporters, family members, and supporters of the victims. Cameras rolled. Emotions ran high. There were 3 victims. There was sex. There was identity. And there was motive, rooted in shame, secrecy, and exposure. Prosecutors argued that Devon fit a dangerous profile, someone known as a trade, a man who presents as heterosexual, but secretly has romantic or sexual encounters with other men. They told the jury that Devon's interactions with the group that night had triggered something in him: shame, rage, fear of being outed, and that this emotional turmoil escalated into deadly violence. One of the strongest testimonies came from Blair Keys, one of the 2 survivors. Blair told the jury he never felt comfortable inviting a stranger from a gas station into the house. He voiced his concern to the homeowner, Lance, but was ultimately overruled. "That's a random guy from a gas station," he testified. "That concerned me, it just didn't sit right." He described Devon's demeanor during the party as cold and emotionless. "He just sat there. Quiet. Blank. He didn't speak to anyone." Then Blair recalled the interaction between Devon and Paris just before Devon left. They exchanged numbers. Paris smiled. Devon didn't. "He had a very bland look," Blair said. "No emotion at all. He just said, 'Oh yeah, I'll see you again.' And he did." Not long after, Blair recounted the moment everything fell apart. "It was me, Paris, Alonte, Timothy, and Armin. We were sitting around, laughing, still joking about what had happened that night. Then they heard footsteps. We thought it was Lance coming back. It was close to July, so when we heard those pops, we thought maybe fireworks. But it wasn't fireworks. A man in a ski mask burst through the front door and opened fire. It wasn't a big gun, but it was like pow, pow, pow." That's how survivor Blair Keys described the shooting. At first, they thought it was a prank, maybe even fireworks. But then they saw him, a man in a ski mask, moving through the house with cold intent. "All I heard was Paris scream, and then a gunshot." Blair froze. He didn't move. He didn't run. He just sat there, waiting for the masked man to leave. The defense leaned heavily on one point. The eyewitnesses couldn't positively identify Devon Robinson as the shooter. Both Blair and Armin initially admitted they never saw the attacker's face. But by the time of the trial, Blair's testimony had evolved. "Are you able to identify the shooter that night?" "Yes." "And what did that person look like to you?" "It looked like the same man sitting in this courtroom today. The defendant, Mr. Robinson." Still, during cross-examination, Blair admitted that he hadn't seen the shooter's face directly. Armin Matthews, the other survivor, also testified. He'd been in the dining room when the gunfire began. He couldn't see the front door. But when the shooting started, He immediately grabbed Timothy Blanchard and ran for the basement. We thought it might have been fireworks. But then I grabbed him. We ran. He said something to me, and then he stopped talking. Armin placed his hand on Timothy's chest and felt the wound. He grabbed my hand and put it where the bullet went in. Armin tried to hold pressure on the wound. He ran upstairs, saw the others collapsed in the corner, called 911, then ran back to Timothy. He stayed with him until the police arrived. I stayed on the phone with 911. I was holding him. He was still breathing, still looking at me. When officers entered, they drew their weapons on Armin. They told him to take his hands off the victim. And I believe that's when he really lost his life. Armin, like Blair, never saw the shooter's face. But both told the jury the gunman came in and walked out within minutes. The prosecution's case was strong. Surveillance cameras tracked the movements of the shooter before and after the attack, leaving from and returning to Devin Robinson's home. The defense offered no explanation, no alternative suspect, no theory for why someone else might have followed that exact route at that exact time. Devin never took the stand. Why? Prosecutors believed the answer was clear. He didn't want to be outed. They argued that Devin feared everyone in the neighborhood would find out. That night at the party, people had seen him, had watched him interact with Paris, had watched him walk out the door smiling. And now, he couldn't take the chance of that news spreading. Even Armin testified that he later moved away, feeling unsafe living as a gay man in that neighborhood. "My mom's gay. My sister's gay," the prosecutor echoed sarcastically. "You're going to hear that, but it's different for men, especially in that community." Prosecutors believed Devin panicked, that he returned home, changed into black clothing, walked down Brunswick Avenue, cut through to Devonshire Street, and murdered 3 people. Then walked back like nothing happened. You'd have to believe some random person took an 8-minute walk at the exact same time of the murders. That's not what happened. This is the man who did it. The jury deliberated. When they returned, the courtroom fell silent. Count 1, homicide, first degree, Alonte Davis, guilty. Count 2, homicide, first degree, Timothy Blanchard, guilty. Count 3, homicide, first degree, Paris Cameron, guilty. Count 4, felony firearm, assault with intent to murder, guilty. Devin Robinson was sentenced to 3 life terms without parole for the murders, 10 to 20 years for assault with intent to murder, 2 additional years for felony firearm charges, 10 convictions in total. He appealed, arguing that the evidence was too weak, too circumstantial. But in 2023, the appeal was denied. Then, in April 2025, a new Michigan Supreme Court ruling determined that mandatory life sentences for individuals under May 21 be too harsh. As a result, Devin Robinson became eligible for resentencing. As of this recording, Devin remains incarcerated at Chippewa Correctional Facility in Michigan. His earliest possible release date is listed as June 2, 2056. Friends and family of Paris Cameron, Alonte Davis, and Timothy Blanchard continue to honor their memory. They're remembered as vibrant, funny, and full of life, young souls taken too soon by shame, fear, and a split-second act of cowardice. This was the House Party Massacre. A night that should have ended in laughter, ended in bloodshed instead. Thank you for watching.